It was Tuesday, April 1st, the first day of Poetry Month, is what they decided to go with on the announcement date. And so I was in class all day, and in the meantime, my social media, my phone, my email was like just starting to blow up, and colleagues would pass me in the hallway, and they were going, "What?" And like, really? And like Holly Thorpe, and who's one of my many wonderful colleagues at Wenatchee Valley College. I had to keep it super secret, until they announced it, and then, but in my classroom, it was just business as usual. I didn't say anything, it was just like, we're focused on the lessons for today.
And that's your classroom at Wenatchee Valley College, where you are a professor of English. We first met in 2023 with the publication of Cascadia Field Guide, Art, Ecology, and Poetry, which you co-edited. That's, I've heard, has had amazing sales. It won the Pacific Northwest Book Award, and that collaboration connected you with 100 poets, 14 visual artists. That's a big project. What response have you gotten from readers about that?
It's been incredible, the reception. People are saying that it's changing how they think about being in place. And I think that may speak to the nature of the book itself. My co-editors and co-writers, Liz Bradfield and C. Marie Furman and I, we worked on it for 5 years, and we had no idea that it was going to have this kind of response. But when we finished it, we realized that we'd made something that hadn't existed before. There was nothing like this book before we made it. And the closest thing to it maybe was Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass. And her work in particular was a big influence on us. But yeah, just readers really enthusiastic about the art that was made for the book. I mean, it's a field guide for the heart. And the three of us, we love field guides. We're all nature nerds and poets, and that's why we were like the three to work together on it. But numbers, data, and the way scientists write, they've been trained to write utterly devoid of humanity or joy or color or any of that good stuff. And so you get three poets writing that prose, and it's kind of special. And so it's been very gratifying, that reception.
I like in it how you refer to the creatures as beings rather than species. That's an example of the poetic lens that's put on over what's usually studied by scientists, but bringing a group of writers, artists. I was reading former world publisher Rufus Wood's comments, and he said it shifted his outlook on the web of life. That seems to be part of your mission, as I understand it, as a writer and an outdoorsman. How do you think poetry can shift people's outlook on the natural world?
I love that question. I love how you bring poetry and the natural world together like that. And my first response would be that what we call the natural world, the other than human world, the more than human world, because of course we are part of the natural world too, we human beings, we human animals. But that natural world out there, the shrub steppe out there right now, the Columbia River, there's a wildness that is essential to how the world works. And it's the same with poetry. I don't know of any other art form. It might be my artist friends, my musician friends at the college would say, oh no, writing song, oh, painting. So for me though, but poetry, because it always involves what the Greeks thought about, conceived of as the muse, like you're filled with God, some kind of divinity when you're making this work, because like, holy moly, where did that come from? I didn't know that was in me. There's some incredibly wild aspect to making poems that puts you in touch with this other, this sense of this something greater, and that's what I feel in the natural world. And so there's an intrinsic affinity between the two of them, between poetry and nature.
I point that out because I know you work with students in a combined course, like a naturalist course. You're identifying plants and animals in the region, but also learning to respond to that with poetry. Do you have a special heart for young people, for teenagers or students when it comes to your Poet Laureate role, that you'll be out there connecting with the community?
Definitely. When I was working on the application for the position, I thought about what I could do, and I could do an eco book, an eco poetry book, but I'd already done that in Cascadia Field Guide. And recent Washington State Poet Laureate, our first native one, Rena Priest, made a beautiful book called Seeing the Salmon Home, which was doing that work. So we've got that covered. And then I thought, what do we need in this state? How can I help? How can I use this role to help us all? And then I very quickly started thinking about the well-being of our young people, and what I see as a mental health crisis in teenagers. These are the kids who were a certain age during COVID, and who have been raised by screens. And I have a lot of young students in my classes at Wenatchee Valley College. I have daughters. I have friends with kids, and I'm really worried about our young people, and I want to take poetry into their lives. I want to focus especially on schools and colleges, and take poetry into their lives, because poetry gives us so many things, but the first thing that it gives us first and foremost is healing. It's a balm. It's as natural as breathing to express ourselves, and it helps us slow down and be here and be contemplative. And boy, I think we need a lot of that, and I think our kids especially need it.
I agree with you. I started writing poetry as a teenager. When did you start finding poetry?
Yeah, 16, I think. I was in Kevin Miller's class in Gig Harbor High School near Tacoma, and at that point, I wanted to be one of two things. I wanted to be either a bookstore owner when I grew up, or I wanted to write books like Edgar Rice Burroughs, so about like Tarzan and John Carter of Mars, and these books that I loved reading, that fed my imagination and that gave me a place to be when being 16 was really hard, and you know, Dungeons and Dragons was back there too. I tell my students, those kids in Stranger Things, you know, that's me and my friends. Okay, rolling the 20-sided die. Yeah.
But by the time you got to University of Washington, you were in the creative writing program, exposed, I'm sure, to tons of different poets. And did you hone in with a certain teacher there? Oh yeah,
once again, I was so fortunate to find myself in a classroom, in the classroom of Nelson Bentley, who's a legend in Washington State. Long before there was a state poet laureate position, he was it for a long time. His students are all over across the state, and it's because of one thing: love. When he worked with you, I mean, before there was this expression in the language, like he saw us, like I see you, you know, and he was extraordinary because he cared more about his students' work than he did his own. And that was my undergraduate work, and then I went on to graduate school there as well. And I worked with Colleen McElroy, who was, I didn't know it at the time, I just asked her to be my thesis advisor because she also was really nurturing and saw me and was generous with her time and her teaching. And I guess she was the first black woman to be tenured at the University of Washington. So I just came from Seattle yesterday, the downtown Seattle Public Library, where I was part of a presentation to honor her legacy. And I was so glad to be there. There was a lot of laughter, some beautiful poems, and some tears.
There's a lot of emotion in poetry, of course, so these connections between people that form are going to have an emotional nature to them. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And this is a 2-year Poet Laureate term. You'll be, I'm sure, visiting a lot of libraries. You mentioned schools. At those places, are you sharing your own work or also the work of other poets?
Yeah, I will share some of my work, but even more so, I'll be sharing the work of other poets. I've read far too many poems in my life. I have far too many books of poetry. I'm glad this didn't take place in my office today because it's a mess. I've been trying to get it organized for a few years. But yeah, in fact, my students and I just last quarter, we read and then got to talk to Matthew Nino, his new book, If Nothing. He's a great poet out of Port Townsend, and it's a particularly good collection for me to be thinking about and reading right now because his story is really interesting. After being a poet for so long, he's now become a therapist, his new job. Yeah, and that's kind of where I want to go with this job.
Well, you're working with people already as a teacher, and this will just expose you to many more. You have a number of books that have been published. I see some of them here. Can people just order those the usual places online?
Yeah, thank you for asking. A book for all a book for all seasons in Leavenworth and Elliott Bay Books in Seattle. Both of those stores I know have everything. In Wenatchee, Evergreen Gift Shop, Mary Big Bowl Lewis's store, has carried my work. It recently has shifted to an online format, so I'm not sure about that. But listen, I just heard that there's a new bookstore in town, and I think I saw the piece on the TV here. There was a piece on Fable. Let's all talk to Fable. Tell them to order some books in, and then there will be a nice local place to get it. I do recommend that because I don't want to live in a society where I can't walk into a bookstore and have those serendipitous moments happen where a book finds me and I'm talking to other people who love books, and yeah, I see our independent bookstores as part of the commons and as being essential to our culture the way trees are. They both help us breathe.
Thank you. Well, to close us out today, I've asked if you'd please read us one of your poems. You said you might have something funny, but a lot of serious work. I asked for the sublime, and you delivered. So let's hear one of your poems, please.
Yeah, no funny today. No funny today. So this is one that I thought about because it does connect a bit with my project with young people, and it goes back many years ago, and it comes out of my life in raising 2 daughters, and it's called First Grade. Sunday afternoon, and she looks up from her drawing, wants to know if I know the game where you put your head down and thumb up until someone picks you. Yes, I say, across the room and half listening. Well, I always picked my friends, but They never picked me. I pause in the middle of a sentence. Who are your friends? Everyone, she says, as if I had asked 1 + 1 or the color of the sky. Sunlight draws a skewed rectangle across the floor. I see, I say, and let my notebook close, seeing children in rows, heads on desks, her big ears poking through sandy hair, listening for a breath or a step. Yes, I remember that game. And I stand and walk over to find the outline of her hand plunging through a white sky.
Wonderful. Applause. I remember that game as well. It's a wonderful subject for a poem. It is emotional. All right. Well, I can't wait to see what you bring to the people and the youth of our state. I wish you all the best travels and connections to be had. Pleasure to have you in this valley, and congratulations again on Poet Laureate.
Jessica, back at you. Thank you again so much for inviting me here today.